Yeah, so then that's a really interesting thing, and I know Noah and Mike have gotten some experience on our system, but our system starts to kind of defy the odds because of that burning sensation that you're getting on these machines is designed to enhance your motor recruitment, so it speeds up the process. So it's kind of like having a cheat code almost, right? And that's kind of the way that you want to look at it. I'll give you another example. Like sometimes when you're trying to work on rotator cuff, right? You know, in terms of trying to get the motor units firing in the rotator cuff after a surgery, if somebody has a weak grip or a weak wrist or they're weak in pronation and supination, not only can it, you know, basically affect the mechanics at the shoulder, it's also going to affect the recruitment, which obviously those go hand in hand, right? So then if you want to really build up strength in the shoulder, you got to start building up strength in the wrist and the forearm as well, because that area is going to fail. Or squatting would be another example, right? So if I want to squat 500 pounds, my back and my core better be able to handle having that amount of weight on there. So I need to be able to meet those prerequisites, right? Or what ends up happening is I have an adverse level of motor unit recruitment, right? Where now my body starts recruiting the motor units in the wrong way, which could lead to a spasm or excessive tone, or now we end up getting into actually potentially some type of structural deformity, injury type of issue that can happen along those lines. But that's one of the reasons why this is so important, that what we're talking about. I'll come back to this and maybe we'll you know, could finish on this topic. I mean, we could keep going if you guys want to talk about this stuff, but I was really torn with I'm trying to think of the Japanese, is it Katsu? Katsu is the blood pressure or the what do they call it? It's the
BFR,
blood flow restriction, right? Yeah. Have you guys had any experience with that?
Yeah.
I know about it.
Yeah.
Read about it a lot. I haven't personally done it with a patient or myself.
Yeah. Oh. What's that?
We use it a lot with our lower extremity patients, not so much upper extremity.
Yeah, there's a little bit more contraindication probably for upper extremity, I would bet too, but I don't know. I looked into it a little bit more heavily a while back, and I want to talk about this. But go ahead. What were you going to say, Sean?
Oh, you just asked if we used it, so I was going to say, yeah, we used it.
Okay, you looked like you were going to say something else. So basically, I had this thought process when we started using allografts for ACL rehabs, and the whole idea was to decrease the discomfort that the person was going through, right? And so then you saw this quick turnaround where basically people were, you know, 3 months ahead because they didn't have any of their own tissue to heal, right? They're functionally, you know, they're functionally doing really, really well as well early on, but then boom, they re-tear, right? So the allografts have a really high re-tear rate, right? A lot of it was getting attributed to, you know, problems with the allograft itself. And I had to step back and I went, well, let's look at the basics here, right? Is there a more important neuromotor process that's going on with the retraining of the biomechanics and the recruitment and all of these things that we're talking about when you have to slow the process down and do your rehab for 6, 9, 12 months versus 3 to 6 months? And you have to argue that the answer is yes. And I know that there's literature on that too that shows that, you know, as you, the more time that you take to recover from the injury, the less likelihood you have of getting re-injured, right? The longer the time is, 2 years, right? They're showing that. But here's what I come to, right, is going, is that a factor of us trying to speed up the process through BFR, right? And these other mechanisms that are going on where I'm going to try to, even with the return to sports testing like we talked about last time, am I really training somebody for these functional transfers, or am I trying to get them through this process that I'm learning or that I know, right? So I want to do blood flow restriction because it's going to speed up the hypertrophy. Arguably, right, if I can increase their strength and hypertrophy, maybe I can actually do more improvement with their neuromotor skills as well, possibly early on, if I allow that to happen. But you're basically microwaving that process. So in microwaving that process, does it take something away from that muscle memory improvement and the neuromotor recruitment that we're talking about, right? I know it's a little bit of a circle talk, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about that.
With the process of microwaving, and I was just thinking of, would you rather microwave chicken nuggets or bake chicken nuggets? I would rather bake them because they taste better at
Right.
the end. So even though you get the shortcut to strengthening and the hypertrophy, it also comes down to, why did they tear their ACL in the first place? What biomechanics did they have at that one point in time that they were unlucky enough to snap and pop that? So you could get them the foundation of the strength, the range of motion back early on, but if you don't fix their neuromechanics or biomechanics, then they're just going to be predisposed to re-tearing their ACL. So it's a shortcut to getting the foundation, but it's not a shortcut to fixing the overall problem as a part of the clinical picture.
Right, and to think about this too, you end up moving through the stages faster, right? So you don't get as much repetition and volume through doing the basic stuff for a longer period of time, right? And I'm just adding to what you're saying there. You know, I agree. I really am not a big fan of the BFR. I don't think it's necessary, and I think that probably people that are using it are maybe missing something in their rehab protocol. That's my personal opinion. Because to me, when I first started hearing about it, I was like, I don't need that. Why would I even want that? I don't need it. You know what I mean? There's this idea of speeding up that for the risk. It just didn't make any sense to me. I got it. I get it at the same time. What's that?
I was saying, I like your microwave analogy. You know, knowing some of the stuff I do from taking biochemistry, like that was my undergrad major at Virginia Tech. I have to agree with you. I mean, I don't necessarily have anything against BFR, but I am a little weary because, yeah, it almost sounds like it's like a physiological cheat code to skip some steps there to, you know, stimulate our body to create hypertrophy before it's ready. And what are we missing in terms of, you know, maybe there's a reason we need to hit those other steps, you know, and the neuromuscular re-education needs to happen first before our bodies are even physiologically ready for hypertrophy. I mean, our bodies do things in a certain way, and we've evolved over time for things to happen in a certain order and process. And, you know, obviously BFR is a little unnatural. I mean, we're not used to having our vessels restricted in that manner normally at all when we're functioning and living day to day.
Right.
Like it's you know, abnormally stimulating, you know, hormones or certain chemicals in our cells that under normal circumstances wouldn't be released, and causing that cascade or that metabolic pathway, whatever you want to call it, to start the muscle hypertrophy. So yeah, there could be certainly, whether it's coordination deficits, neuromuscular deficits, missing motor unit recruitment in certain areas of the muscle body before, you know, strengthening or causing the hypertrophy to happen. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of unknowns there, but it also just seems a little unnatural. It seems kind of like microwaving, like you said, and when in doubt, there's really no shortcuts. You're only cheating yourself. And so if you think you're taking a shortcut and that's going to help, you know, when in doubt, avoid the shortcuts is kind of my philosophy.
Yeah, and my new thing has been run